All right, looks like we're live. I'm just going to check Facebook and make sure that Facebook is working. Sometimes it's a little bit wonky. Okay, we're set. Excellent. All right, we'll give it just a minute for some people to join, and I will just kind of go through a quick welcome and announcements before we get started. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jamie Chavez. I'm the president and CEO of the Westminster Chamber of Commerce. And every Wednesday, we bring to you a live broadcast featuring one of our newest chamber members to introduce them and give them a chance to tell you about their business. If you're new to the broadcast, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. If you're on Facebook, you can hit like or follow us, and then you will get notifications for when we go live in the future. And if you are on YouTube, you can hit subscribe, and all of our previous broadcasts are on YouTube as well, so you can watch them there. We also offer a broadcast on Mondays, which are dedicated to city updates from city councilors, mayor pro tem, mayor, and other city officials. And these broadcasts are a chance for you to hear all about what's going on down at City Hall. So we hope that you will join us for those ones as well. And then we reserve one Friday a month for updates from Adams and Jefferson County commissioners. And so stay tuned for those for information on broader county matters. As you watch the broadcast this morning, we hope that you'll engage with us. Feel free to ask any questions, post your comments, or just say hello, and we'll get to those during the interview. And for now, a warm welcome to Jennifer Short with Eventide Bookkeeping. Thanks for joining us today, Jennifer. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll just get right into it, and you can let us know, how you started or why you started Eventide, what your history is, your background, all that good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So I started my career in public accounting, and I did some bookkeeping for small clients, did a variety of work, a lot of tax work, and enjoyed all of it. But over the years, transitioned into nonprofit work and left the public accounting world and spent many years working in nonprofit, specifically with healthcare and mental health providers, and really liked supporting that industry and those people who are providing that frontline direct patient care. So several years ago, I decided I was ready to step out of the corporate world and decided to open Eventide. So we're just coming up on our 3-year anniversary here. And really the motivation there was to feel like I could have more direct interaction with the small business owners, with the people whose lives are impacted by needing to learn about finances and by the decisions that they're making. And so I definitely still have a passion for working with the healthcare providers that are in private practice, especially the behavioral health providers, the people that are just doing wonderful work in the community and for the people in our community. Although what I really love is working with a small business owner and providing financial literacy and the education that goes along with providing a service. I feel like there's probably a lot of accountants that bring really solid work to the table, but they're busy, and interacting with people and making those connections might not be their forte or why they went into business. And so it can be more transactional in the relationship. And I really like to have more, I don't know if I would say a personal relationship, because it's not like we're friends that hang out outside of work, but more of a comfortable relationship where my clients know they can call me with questions. Even if I don't know the answer or it's outside of my scope, I will do my best to find a referral to help answer those questions, give them guidance on where they could do additional research. Definitely, like I said, that financial literacy piece I think is important, because a lot of people just know I have enough money in the bank to pay the bills this month, and I'll get more money next month, and for both business and personal. And their knowledge and understanding doesn't go much beyond that. And it can be scary for a lot of people to even think about more than that with finances. And so I really like helping people break it down, see what's going on with the books, see those numbers, know that it's not scary, know that taxes are not scary, that as long as we're prepared and you know what to expect, everything, and the numbers can work for you. Everything flows. There's no surprises. And if you're being proactive, you know when something is coming up that could have been a surprise or scary before. So it's really a collaborative relationship is how I like to approach working with folks.
Yeah, that's awesome. And where did you get the name Eventide? What's the story there?
Yeah, so when I was trying to think about names, I am an accountant, and so I'm very analytical. And I was thinking of names like short bookkeeping or something with my name that was not creative, and I did not like any of those ideas. So I was trying to brainstorm what is something like a word or a time or a feeling that I have that makes me feel calm and relaxed and positive for the future. And thinking about sunsets, especially for those of us in Colorado here, if you're in the mountains and you see just this beautiful sunset, it just feels so relaxing, like, oh, we've accomplished something. A new day will start tomorrow. It's a fresh start, just kind of winding down. And so in researching other words that kind of mean end of day, sunset, eventide is one of those words. And so that's where it came from, was just this idea of it invokes calmness in me. And it's a feeling of we have a fresh start. We've survived another day. We're going to make, if we need to make changes, it'll be at the, tomorrow. We have tomorrow to work on things, but just kind of relaxing and ending the day, the season that we're in.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you definitely have kind of that peaceful presence about you. So that's nice.
Well, thank you.
Especially for something like bookkeeping and accounting and taxes. It's very stressful for business owners. I know that. So yeah.
Yes.
And maybe can you give us kind of a breakdown or a brief explanation of the difference between bookkeeping and then like a bookkeeper or a CPA, and what services you offer and do for people?
Yeah, so that is a great question, because actually the term bookkeeper is a more traditional term that literally referred to the people before computer times, before digital era, that would have those ledger books, and they would record all the transactions in and out of the business. And so that was actually keeping the books, the physical books. Now with the digital technology like QuickBooks or Xero, the computer system does that for you. It is the one that is actually bringing in those transactions from your bank account and recording them in that digital book. So the term bookkeeper is more outdated in the sense that literally there really aren't people that do bookkeeping nowadays, because it's the software does that task. It's just a familiar term that people still have in mind. And so I use the term bookkeeping. In my terminology, that's more synonymous with accounting, which is taking those numbers and that data that's been entered and then doing something with them. And so that is analyzing, ensuring they're recorded correctly, preparing the financial statements, helping a business owner understand how to read those financial statements. Technically, under the traditional definition, none of that is bookkeeping. But I think most people you meet that are bookkeepers or have bookkeeping firms these days, they're really incorporating more of that accounting level work. Now, when we start talking about a controller or a CPA, those are just different levels of the same sort of work, where your bookkeeper is the one, or the software is the one that's entering your transactions. Your accountant is the one that is making sure all of that is in correctly. They are the ones organizing the data, analyzing it, kind of doing that first pass. And then you could go up to a controller, which most larger organizations will have a controller and a CFO that are different people. So then your controller is overseeing that whole revenue cycle, that whole financial picture. They're not necessarily in the weeds doing the day-to-day, but they're the ones that have the big picture, and they would work with your CFO, which I know was not your question, but that, like, in a corporate environment, they're the two that are really overseeing strategic goals. How can we make changes in the business to steer this ship in the direction that we want? That will trickle down to what the accountant or the bookkeeper are doing. But really making those proactive decisions, that's more of what like your controller and CFO are doing. I can provide that level of service if people, and a lot of it's blurred lines. It's not so clear cut, but definitely my base level service is providing that accounting level service of, let's make sure everything's coming in the books correctly. Let's make sure it's reflecting what you need to see and what's actually happening, and make sure you understand how to read and use this data. Then a lot of clients want a little bit more than that. They say, okay, this is great. Now what do I do with this data, and how do I achieve the goals that I have set? And that that bridges more over into that controllership level of guidance and kind of an advisory level support. Then when we start talking about a CPA, I think that is another term that is really broadly used. And so the term CPA means it's a license, certified public accountant. And so the person has gone through education, they've done supervision hours, and they've passed in the state of Colorado. At least when I was looking into it, it's 5 different exams in different specialty areas. So a CPA means this is an accountant who knows their stuff, and they've proven that they know all aspects of the accounting world. But then in reality, when a CPA gets a job, they're probably only focusing in one of those areas, not all of them. And so you have some CPAs that focus on tax work, but not all of them. And I think that's a misconception people have, is when they're thinking about tax prep. I hear people say, I need a CPA to do my taxes. Well, you'll find a lot of CPAs that don't touch taxes because they had to learn it to get their license and get through school, but that is not their area of expertise. And then you, at the same time with taxes, you have other people that are not CPAs. There can be enrolled agents, which is an IRS licensure for tax preparers. And there are what is called unenrolled preparers, which is what I am. I'm working on the EA exam, but I've not passed all 3 parts yet. And so as an unenrolled, there is still annual continuing education requirements, and you still need to pass a test with the IRS, but you don't have a license designation. So really, from a tax perspective, I would say as an education point, when people are looking for a tax preparer, you can look for a CPA who is a tax preparer. That absolutely is a combination that's out there and in demand. But you don't necessarily want to go out to your network and say, give me your CPA referrals, because they might not all do tax work. And so it'd be clear, I'm looking for a tax preparer, I'm looking for a CPA who is a tax preparer, versus I need a CPA to help with my finances, to help with the accounting side of things, to help with a myriad of other things in the financial world. And yeah, so there's all of these different flavors. And for Eventide, I am not a CPA. I do have the education hours, but because I was working in the nonprofit world, I could not get the supervision hours at that time, because again, you need to have supervision in that well-rounded, all of this areas. And I would have had to leave my job and go into a different role in order to get the supervision. And I chose at the time not to. And like I'm sure everybody who has a license, at least in the accounting world, now this many years later, I don't think I could even pass half of the test, because I haven't used all of that knowledge in the intervening years. So there's, for Eventide services, definitely I call it bookkeeping, but it is really that accounting level basic support, as well as moving into the advisory level support for people that might want help with budgeting or cash flow forecasting, or really understanding their finances to take that next step and be proactive in reaching business goals. And then I do provide tax prep services because I enjoy it, but I don't want it to take over my life. And so it is a smaller component, and I am more selective about who I will do tax prep work for, just because I don't want to be working 80-hour weeks every spring.
You don't want to be one of those people that disappears from January 15th to April 15th every year.
I've done that before, and it was fun for a few years, but not now that I'm older and have kids and a life outside of work. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for that explanation. I think definitely bookkeeping, accounting, taxes, all of that is something that I think a small business owner struggles with, because most of us, I think, because it's just not, when you go into business, you don't go into business to do those things. You go into business to do whatever it is that you're doing. And so people like you are very necessary. What are some signs that a business owner should outsource their bookkeeping and get a hold of you or someone like you?
I mean, honestly, I think everybody should be considering at least a consultation with a bookkeeper or accountant. Even folks who are really small, we're talking side hustles, you keep track of your income and expenses on an Excel spreadsheet, which is totally fine if that's the level your business is at. It doesn't hurt to at least do a consultation and just say, hey, am I on the right track? Because even in that situation, everything you're tracking for your business is going to flow to your tax return. And the cleaner that data is, and the more you understand what should be recorded in at what level of detail will make it easier when it comes time to do your taxes. And I know a lot of tax preparers do help with that sort of cleanup and understanding at year end, but there's probably a hefty hourly fee associated with that. And so if you can gain some of that knowledge ahead of time, it will make that process smoother, quicker, and probably cheaper. I would say for a business where you are growing a little bit more, and really, I don't know that I would define it like a dollar amount of revenue or anything like that. It's more around your time, that if you're doing your own books, even if you feel confident with what you're doing, when it reaches a point where the number of hours you spend every month doing your books could have been spent doing what your business was actually built for, that return on investment flips. And when you're first starting out, you don't have the money to outsource. And so it makes sense that it's a better use of your time to do something to keep the business going. But once you're at a point where your time is better spent bringing in more business or working with your current customers, that's when I would actually look at put a dollar amount to those hours. Like, what could you bring into the business that you're not bringing in because you've now spent 4 hours this weekend doing your bookkeeping? And also the intangible of the stress level when it comes to year end and you're pulling together your taxes. Do you find yourself hesitating and you don't want to think about it because you don't know where to find the information? You know, your tax preparer will ask questions that you don't know how to answer. That's when I think alleviating that stress is probably going to be worth whatever it would cost to bring in a professional to help support you at that point.
Yeah.
And so it's
really
not a
good way to look at it.
Yeah, and it's not a dollar amount necessarily, but it's more around your time and your stress level.
Yeah, exactly. When I had a coffee and wine bar, I made it a point to do all of my own bookkeeping because I wanted to understand it and know what was going on. But towards the end of that part of my business, or towards the end of that business, I just was like, okay, it is time for me to not do this anymore. So I totally get that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is, I think, one mistake that you see small businesses make when it comes to their books?
I would say one of the biggest mistakes is commingling, which is mixing personal and business expenses. And that can go either way, whether you have your business bank account. Most people I see do have a separate business bank account and a personal bank account, which is the first step. So that is great. But then if you use that business bank account to pay for personal things, or you use your personal bank account to still keep paying for business things, that's called commingling. And that is where you are now putting yourself in a situation where you no longer have separate legal entities. And so most people will create an LLC because that provides that limited liability coverage for the business. And just kind of a very basic high level example would be, say your business gets sued, you go to court, here's all the assets for the business, that's what's at stake in this lawsuit. It doesn't touch your personal home or your personal retirement account because you have that LLC. And so only the business is at stake. Or vice versa. Maybe it's something happened personally, but your business is in a separate bubble. Once you start commingling, you've broken that barrier. And that is where, say the business gets sued and you go to court there, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know all the legal nuance of this, but I know that at that point, if it can be proven that you actually use that business bank account for personal, then all of a sudden there's no barrier. And now everything personal is part of that lawsuit as well. And so now it's not just the business that is at risk, it's your home, your savings account, your retirement account, everything personal. And vice versa, if something happens on the personal side, but they can say, well, you really mix, you and your business are all the same because everything runs out of your personal bank account. Well, now your business is part of that conversation. It's also true with an IRS audit. If your business gets audited, which that's another thing I would tell people, don't panic. I know a lot of people will get a notice from the IRS and they won't even open it. They just put it aside because it's so stressful. Open it. A lot of times it's just information. They're just notifying you of something. They just need you to confirm something. Most of those are system generated. It's not a person judging you. It's just, let's see what they need to get this checked off their list. And if you are audited, again, it's not the end of the world. If you have proper bookkeeping, you just produce those documents. The auditor will see that you have been keeping track, that everything's on the up and up, and you're good. It's when you don't have that documentation that then there might be an issue with the audit. If that is what happens in an audit and they can see you commingle, then that could lead to an audit on your personal return as well. And it just breaks that, that barrier. And I see the question here from David. So yes, for a single member LLC, there is still that barrier in there. It is not true for somebody who has not formed an LLC that is running their business as a sole proprietorship, because then there is no distinction. That is truly everything works under their social security number for business and personal. In your single member LLC, you have obtained the EIN for the business. And so even though for tax purposes, it's still a pass-through entity that comes through on your 1040, it is legally still a separate business entity.
Got it. Thank you. Do you have a favorite like bookkeeping tip or hack that saves clients time or money?
Honestly, it's not a snazzy one, but I would say set aside a little bit of time each month to stay on top. If you're doing your own bookkeeping, definitely. Maybe it's just a half day once a month that you have blocked on your calendar. And that's when you sit down, you look at your bank statements, your credit card statements, you make sure that's reflected in your accounting software, whether that's a software like QuickBooks or Xero, or it's a spreadsheet. Stay on top of it, because if you wait until year end, it will feel so overwhelming that that's when I think people just pretend it doesn't exist and then get into trouble for not doing things. If you are outsourcing and you have a bookkeeper or accountant doing this work for you, I would still say monthly or at least quarterly, make sure you have a meeting with that person to review, what do my financial statements say? Am I on track with my goals? Have I been making my estimated payments as I should be? Stay involved. Don't just put your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist, because even if you're trusting someone else to do it, you still want to be involved. You still want to know what's happening, make sure it aligns with what you think is happening, and make sure that you can use that data yourself to grow your business.
Got it. Awesome. And then I listened to a presentation that you gave the other day at a different event, and you mentioned needing to save receipts. And I think this is another thing that businesses are really particularly bad at, is we don't save the receipts for all of our transactions. And so then you mentioned if you were audited, that could be a problem. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, that is another one where I do frequently have people say, well, isn't my bank statement enough? It shows that I spent money out of my business bank account. And yes, that supports the fact that you spent money, but it does not prove how you spent that money and that there was a business purpose to it. And I think that is also a confusing thought for people. But really, what you're trying to do is protect yourself against an IRS audit. At the end of the day, that's what it is for. And if the IRS did come knocking and said, hey, you have $10,000 in meals expense last year, was that really all business? They're just wanting to make sure that you weren't going out to eat personally and using the business card. Just showing that the money came out of the business account does not justify the spending of that money. And that's where having the receipts can help support that. In those cases, you want not only the receipt, because the receipt itself just shows what the bank statement shows, but you also want to have a note, and just writing it on the receipt is good enough to say, who did you meet with and what was the business purpose? And this, I think, could be, meals are the biggest area where it's easy for people to use the wrong card when you're going out, but you want to make sure, just jot on your receipt, who are you with? What was the purpose, business purpose? Take a picture. Also, paper receipts and documents fade with time and can get damaged, and having a digital repository will be better than just keeping a shoebox of paper receipts. That can just be a Google Drive where you take a picture with your phone and you upload it to your Google Drive. Even if you don't organize it and you just put everything there, that is better than not having it if it did come to an audit. And that's the same for any transaction. If it's utility bills, just make sure you're keeping a copy of that statement showing that it is for your business office. Or if it's a case where you pay personally for your phone line, and then the business reimburses you for part of it. Make sure you just keep that documentation to show, why is the business reimbursing this much? Oh, here's the bill. Here's the line that the business uses under this plan to get a discount. You just want to have all of that, and I would say digitally, so it's easily accessible and it doesn't fade with time.
Got it. And the reason that matters, because it's happening in my head, and I know it's going to happen in other people's head, is why does the IRS care how you spend your money if it's your business?
Yes, I didn't answer the second part of that question. Yes, so back to the meals example, you got a deduction on your tax return. So the taxable income for the business, I mean, they take your gross revenue, you remove all of your expenses, and then that bottom line is what you're taxed on. So the IRS wants to make sure it's getting its fair share of taxes. There are lots of deductions. Everybody should be having a lot of deductions that bring down that taxable income, but you don't want to fraudulently bring it down. So if you were to be audited, that's what the IRS is looking for, is number one, did you report all the income you actually earned? And number two, are all of the expenses that you claimed truly valid business expenses? If they come in and do an audit and they want to see your receipts and you don't have them, and the auditor says, well, then I'm not going to allow these as business expenses, the IRS will basically amend your tax return to remove those expenses, recalculate what is your taxable liability based on that new amount of taxable income, which will be higher if they've taken away expenses. And then they will look back and say, well, you didn't pay us enough money 3 years ago because you paid it on what you thought was the lower taxable amount instead of what they've now calculated as the higher amount. And so then they can hit you with, not only do you have to pay more taxes, but now they can say you've paid late, you have late penalties, you have interest on that. It can snowball into a really big bill that could have been avoided if you had those receipts to be able to prove to the auditor that, yes, these were all valid business expenses. And that's where, as long as everything's in line and you have your documentation and you have those receipts and supporting documents, an audit doesn't need to be scary, because they're just wanting to confirm what you reported. And if you have the supporting documents and you can confirm that, they'll say, great, thank you, and be on their way. It's only when you don't have that it becomes scary.
Got it. Thank you. Well, we have just a couple more minutes here, and I've been asking a lot of questions. Is there anything else that you would like for people to know about you or your business or accounting in general? Any other tips?
Sure. I will say that I love working with folks, whether you need an ongoing bookkeeper or you're just looking for some guidance or quarterly check-ins. I would definitely say check out my website. There's a lot of information about me and the services we offer there. Also, if anyone is interested, I do have blog posts that come out 2 or 3 times a month. Those are housed on the website. And if you go to the contacts page on the website, there's a join our newsletter, and then those will come out to your email inbox. So if anybody is looking for some financial information, that is a great resource as well. And if you want to chat with somebody, feel free to reach out. I would love to talk to anybody here who has questions about business finances.
Fantastic. And I will go ahead and stick a link to your website in the notes here so that that's there. Excellent. Okay. Well, Jennifer, thanks so much for coming on today. That went super quickly. A lot of good information. I hope that members that have more questions will reach out to you, and maybe we can get you in for a lunch and learn here pretty soon and do a presentation. That would be fantastic.
That would be wonderful. I'd really love it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a good day. And thanks for everybody who joined and who replays this. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.